So I'd like to introduce Jason Miller. Jason, welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Jason is the content and social marketing leader for LinkedIn, and he's going to be discussing how to market yourself, your team, and the profession, drawing on his experience as social marketing leader at LinkedIn. So welcome.
Thank you. I literally just got off a plane from Munich, so I've been running around like crazy. We had a great event yesterday in Munich for LinkedIn. I don't know a whole lot about procurement. I've read more about it in the last few days than ever just to prepare for this. But I do know how to build an audience and how to create remarkable content that drives business. So I will share with you my thoughts on that, and hopefully this will work. Oh, yeah. Perfect. This is a brand new presentation. My allergies are killing me today, so bear with me. But this is called The Case for Thought Leadership. I think about things a little bit differently. So I'm a huge music fan. Started my career, I was straight out of college. I'm from the States, by the way. I live in London now. But I started my career working for Sony Music. And I was doing artist development. So I was basically, my job in my late teens, early 20s, was to take the bands, the new bands, to radio stations and record stores for promo visits. And then after their show, I would take them out and show them a good time, if you will. So this is a good time to be in the music business, right? At 99, 2000, bands like Korn, System of a Down, Incubus, even Celine Dion. I was at the opening night of Celine Dion at Caesar's Palace, sitting between Barry Manilow and Oprah Winfrey, believe it or not. But my point is, it was the only job I thought I was ever going to have. I thought I would be this big, A&R rep in New York City, working for the music business that I love so much. But around 2006, 2007, the music industry started to fight digital and the MP3. And they decided to fight digital and fight the technology instead of embracing it. And by 2009, it was just all over. There was no more music industry. So I was left with nothing to do. So I quit my job, went back to school, tried to get my master's degree, but I'm very impatient, so it was taking too long. So I went to, took some accelerated courses on digital marketing, SEO, email marketing, demand generation, everything I could possibly learn. And then I started writing, and I started blogging, and I had to figure out what the hell I was going to do with my life. But I will tell you this, I've been in B2B marketing now for 10 years, and at no point during this transition did I ever say, man, I can't wait to be a B2B marketer. Not very sexy. But it's all about, I thought all that time in the music business, I thought I'd wasted it because I didn't think they prepared me for anything. But it turns out, all that knowledge that I built up around my love for music, I injected that passion into the world of B2B, and we turned it upside down on its head. And so I started blogging, and I think I talk a lot about blogging and thought leadership. And these words are tossed around like authenticity and being transparent, but there's some truth to it. But I remember going into Marketo for a job interview, and they literally looked at me and said, I said, do you need my resume? They said, we know who you are. We know what you do. We read you online. And so that just made it all worth the while. And I was at Marketo for 2 years, built their global content engine around the world. Then LinkedIn called again. They didn't ask for my resume with LinkedIn, they shouldn't. And they said, we know who you are. We want you to come over to LinkedIn. I've been there for 5 years now. So 2 years here in London. This is called The Case for Thought Leadership. This is something new I've never presented before, so bear with me. But I'm going to open up with, and I split this into 4 sides, like my favorite double beat for the comedy. So there's 4 sides to this, very quickly. And we start with this little image here. 1979, everyone knows what this is, correct? This is London Calling. A genre-defining masterpiece created in dire straits. The band was openly at war with their record label. They were broke. They were rehearsing in the guitar player's grandmother's house. But they made this record, and it just shows that creativity can thrive under very challenging constraints. And this record is ranked as the number 8 most important record of all time, the London Calling. But it goes back to The Clash. Why is this band so iconic? Well, the record label that I worked for, this was Sony Music, they came up with this, the marketing team came up with this rather hyperbolic message calling The Clash the only band that matters. But there was a strain of truth to it because they appealed to the working man, and they fought to keep their record prices low, their ticket prices low. This band was broke until 1982 when they had a hit, but they walked their working man's walk. They were the Bruce Springsteen of punk rock, and it was much different than the other bands because Joe Strummer, specifically the lead singer of the Clash, was a disruptor, right? He wanted to start a conversation, let alone start complete anarchy like the other bands. But he famously said, I think people ought to know that we're anti-fascist, we're anti-violence, we're anti-racist, and we're pro-creative. We're against ignorance. They had a mission statement. How many punk rock bands had a mission statement, right? It's crazy to think that. But Joe Strummer wanted to change the world, unlike the Sex Pistols, who wanted to throw a brick at your head. They wanted nothing but complete anarchy. And what happened? What were the results? Well, the results were the Clash had a long decades worth of brilliant music to deliver over that career, and the Sex Pistols imploded after one record, never to be heard from again. One record, a fantastic record, but we're sitting in the middle of where all this happened in the 70s and the 80s, right? Tin Pan Alley, right down the street, where the Pistols lived, where the Clash played their first show. You can walk downstairs. It's a Speedo shop now. You can walk downstairs, move the dummy out of the way, and stand where Joe Strummer played his first show, right in our backyard, where Black Sabbath recorded their first album, where the Stones recorded at Regency Sound Studios. All this stuff is right around the corner behind the LinkedIn office. I spent a lot of time there. But again, the Clash gave us a decade's worth of brilliant music because they broke through the mindless drivel of new wave and the pretentiousness of art rock with some real punk rock, and it transformed everything. But what I love about this, and this really gets me pumped up because Joe Strummer said the future is unwritten. He said the future is what you make it. And I think sometimes as a marketer, myself, we get so tied up in these new technologies, the shiny object syndrome, that we forget to get better today for tomorrow, right? So I'm not a huge fan of Snapchat, but I'm on it. I leverage it when I need to, but I like to stick to the core of what works, right? Sometimes I just wait around for the technology to go away, like Vine on Twitter. I've never created a Vine. I just waited for it to go away, and eventually it did. So that is how I think about this. How can you be a Joe Strummer? How can you be the only brand that matters, the only personal brand that matters? But how can you leverage thought leadership and drive a conversation forward? So this is side 2, called Running with the Content. A slow build. Here it comes. My phone. He's running with the devil. It's the opening cut on Van Halen's debut record. Too long of an intro, I know. So this is side 2. This is the messy truth. My good friends at BuzzSumo. Anybody know BuzzSumo? Very cool tool. I have this in my resource section at the end. They analyzed every public-facing blog post article around the world, and what they found is that 50% of the content out there gets 8 shares or less. And many times, the author themselves are not even sharing their own content. And what does that say? It says that we're too damn busy. We're pushing out so much content that our audience can't possibly consume it. So what's the answer? Well, I will tell you the answer. Summer breeze makes me feel fine. The Isley Brothers. Doesn't that make you just want to take a deep breath and slow down? Anyone know who this woman is? This is my mentor. The reason I am a marketer today, this is Miss Ann Hanley. She is the world's first chief content officer at Marketing Profs out of Boston, Massachusetts. She wrote the book Content Rules, which is the Bible of content marketing. I carry this book with me. I have 3 copies of it. It is everything you need to know. They're revising it for 2018, so you might want to put off buying it until the end of the year. But she echoed my sentiments at Content Marketing World last year. Just take a deep breath, slow down. And what does that look like when you slow down? Well, it's basically the world doesn't need more content. We need more relevant content. So just slow down and take a deep breath. And I want to talk about the opportunity. Now, I talk a lot about the blog. I'm going to get into it in a second. But this is, I actually pulled this is unique data from LinkedIn. I asked our insights team to pull these numbers. So no one's ever seen these before, ever. But I'm happy to share with you. This is the opportunity. This is on LinkedIn specifically. We have 2 million members who work in the purchasing function, 45,000 members with the word procurement in their job title, and director plus seniority, right? Decision makers, influencers, and 400,000 for all seniorities. That's the opportunity. Now, what does it look like when we dive into a little bit deeper? And I will share these slides with you. I pulled, I pulled every piece of content, the top engaging content. I think this is the top 100 posts that these folks, that this audience is engaging with. And you can see they are very versatile on their topics. Now, some of these are procurement specific, some of them are supply chain, some of them are purchasing, some of them just show you that they have a hell of a sense of humor, because this was one of the top most engaged with posts on LinkedIn. What? Here it is. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. Brand new. This is what it looks like when you put all those articles, all those titles into a word cloud. Now, obviously, the procurement kind of reigns supreme. The smaller the word, the less it appears. The bigger it is, the more it appears. But this is the conversation. This is what it looks like. But again, they have a hell of a sense of humor, because this is one of the top most engaged posts with your peers and your audience. I'm always sitting next to this guy. I was sitting next to this guy 2 hours ago coming back from Munich. He bounces up, runs to the front of the plane, and he shaves 1 seconds off of his 2-hour flight, but he pisses off the entire plane. So it just shows that you don't, what's that? It just goes to show that there is a wide range of topics. You don't need to talk about one simple thing. There's a world of ideas out there. So this, not my most beautifully designed slide, but I imported this directly out of LinkedIn. This is, these are the top functions in that audience that we were talking about. And you'll see, obviously, business development is the largest. And then you see down here the top, the seniority, the top seniority. See, the largest audience, again, is senior folks, so that's interesting. Take it down to the top industries. No surprise there, but logistics and supply chain. But you can see these are the topics that they are interested in. So these are the topics that you should be creating content around, or shaping your opinions around, pushing these ideas forward, right? And if you, you can manufacture your content to specifically target this audience and drive that engagement up. There's no question about what you should be creating. It's all written right here, and we dive deeper into it. Top company sizes. This is really interesting. So Enterprise Plus is your audience. That gives you enough of a starting point to map it back to the topics, to map it back to what they're talking about, the top articles, and then you have a blogging content strategy, right? So this is where we split it out even further. Now I took keywords with procurement, supply chain, and purchasing. And you can see here, these are the big topics. Bitcoin, bubbling under. But that audience is really interested in that right now. So you could get in early and probably get some really good engagement with this. Vice President, not really sure what that's about, but I can drill down into these deeper. Robotics, B2B, outsourcing, of course, a couple things there that are no surprise. But if I saw this, I would say, what the hell is going on with Bitcoin? Because that is a hot topic, and you could move that conversation forward, drive some engagement. Really interesting. So these are top articles. So that was topics. These are the top articles, again, that they're engaging with. And you see some really interesting things here. Top 5 ways to be a shipper of choice. Sure, that's a page turner. Really good, but it's specific. It answers a question. That's exactly what you do as a content marketer, as a blogger. You answer questions, right? And if you're a thought leader, you answer that question better than everyone else, and you push that idea forward. You put your own unique spin on it, right? So this is side 3. It's called Kick Out the Content Jams. No good? That's much funnier in my head. All right, so side 3. I'm not really sure where I'm going with this right now. So this, what is thought leadership? So my coworker, John Miller, he's the co-founder of Marketo. No relation, he'll be the first to tell you that, not me. But he posted this question because if you search, I'm not allowed to say Google, I'm supposed to say Bing. I'm just kidding, they don't make sense. This is being recorded. If you go to the search, engine and you type in, what is thought leadership? You get a ton of different responses. The conversation is all over the place. So John Miller asked this question to his LinkedIn audience, and this is the actual audience. This is the summary of the best responses. So thought leadership consists of ideas that require attention, that offer guidance or clarity, and that can help lead people in unexpected, sometimes contrarian directions. Thought leadership needs to be educational and ideally provocative, while content marketing can simply be fun or entertaining. But the two are intertwined. That's where the magic happens, right? So take it a step further. This is Jeff Ernst from Forrester. I love this. Now, this talks about the company, right? How that plays a role with thought leadership, but it can also be added, or can be applied to your personal brand. So he says business buyers don't buy your product or service, they buy into your perspective and approach to solving their problems. It's being one step ahead. It's intent-based, right? It's what the machine learning is happening with the search engines. They want to figure out, they want to be one step ahead of you. They want to figure out what your intent is, and they want to be that best answer. So you take that even a step further, and this is what the Clash did, right? They told you exactly what they stood for, what they would not stand for. They took a stance. You see this happening more and more with brands. I'll give you a few examples in a second. But what does a company stand for? Or what does an individual stand for? What does a thought leader stand for? And what do they clearly not stand for? And you demonstrate these values through marketing efforts, and it gives consumers a reason to follow you. This is how you build an audience. Now, some folks might think that their industry is a little bit too maybe too boring. And why would anybody want to follow these topics? But if you think like that, you're thinking transactionally. And you're not thinking about creating remarkable, referenceable, entertaining content. And that's what it's all about. It's all about blogging. So my wife works in tech. We came up with this idea. We was like, well, how can you apply this giant umbrella of thought leadership and break it down into something actually insightful and actionable? So I came up with, my wife helped me, she's much smarter than I am, 3 types of thought leadership here. So you have 1, industry thought leadership, 2, product thought leadership, 3, organizational thought leadership, and then there's a 3rd for B2C, which I call, oh please work, social responsibility. And I will give you a quick example of each of these. But I want to tell you, like, if you can do all of these, that's fantastic. But if you're an individual, you probably can't but pick one and go after it. So I will give you a great example. So Tanya, when I'm looking in the space of procurement, and I will tell you what, this is wide open for thought leadership. There is when you search for thought leaders in this space, Tanya, you show up number 1. Oh, really? But there's only a few. So it's wide open right now. This is a conversation for the taking, but you're not going to get away from her because she dominates it right now. But what you can do is you can contribute, and you can contribute to the conversation and pivot that in your own unique direction. Put your own spin on it. Take what you know, take what you learn, take what you're questioning, and put it out there. That's where the conversation is happening, right? So I call that industry thought leadership. This is what I call product thought leadership. GoPro. Their product is a video camcorder, for Christ's sake. This thing went out, and now they are a global media company. I have a GoPro in my bag. I carry it with me. I record everything with this. But think about that. They took a dying industry, and they transformed it into something no one's ever seen before. And now they're a market leader, and I love that example, right? Then we look at, I had to throw in a LinkedIn example, organizational thought leadership. How do you drive culture forward? How do you share the future of what belonging and diversity and cultural aspects of working at a company where you feel like you belong? What does that look like? LinkedIn does Bring Your Parents to Work Day, and it took off. And it's a forward-thinking idea that shows how interesting it is to be part of the LinkedIn team. And then finally, I love this one. This is what I call social responsibility, thought leadership. Stella, buy a lady a drink, supporting water.org. But they're leveraging this, and they're telling a story, and they're getting an audience, and they're building an audience. And I'll tell you what, if I'm at the bar and I see Stella, I align my values with them, I will buy Stella. There is an example that I didn't put in here from the States where Nabisco, anybody know Nabisco, American brand? So they put out a commercial with a gay couple, and it was called How They Define Wholesome. And there was a huge backlash against them, and they got tons and tons of hate mail and hate tweets, and I mean, they were just getting, people were saying, I don't want a side of social commentary with my graham crackers. And I beg to differ, because I will pay more for that. And research shows that customers will pay money, they will pay a premium for a brand where their own beliefs align with that. So I appreciate that. I love that. But what Nabisco did with all that negative feedback is they hired a couple of artists to print out every single mean tweet. Anybody ever see this? They printed out every negative email and every bad email or bad tweet, and they rolled it into this beautiful picture and made a piece of art that says love. And when they did that, it was overwhelming. I get chills thinking about this. It was overwhelmingly supported by the social community, and it completely drowned out every single bad thing that that campaign brought about. It's like, it's just a really interesting moment of taking something very negative and turning it into a positive. But again, they took a stance, and they said what we stand for and what we don't stand for. And they took a little bit of flack for it, but that's all right. I like that brand. They align with my values. It's important to think about that. So again, there is no silver bullet. But if you can pick one and focus on it and do it really, really well and do it consistently, that's when the magic happens. This is slide 4. It's called Rock and Roll All Night and Market Every Day. All right, a little bit funny. This is a German audience. Man, I didn't get a laugh at all. This is slide 4. This is my finale. So where does all this thought leadership live, right? It lives on the blog. Now, the blog is certainly not the sexiest piece of social media, but it is the most important. It is a running narrative of your brand, of your personal thoughts, right? It's different than a resource center. A resource center is attached to your website. It's indexed. It's searchable. But a blog is so much cooler. A blog is running in one direction, right? It's got timestamps. It's got dates and comments and likes and plus ones. It's indexed within seconds with the search engines. This is where your thought leadership lives. It can be text. I'm a reader. I prefer text. It can be video. I think we're trying to all figure out what video looks like moving forward right now. It can be any way you can communicate your thoughts, but you have to get these out of your head. You cannot keep them up there because if you solve a problem and you don't write about it, then someone else is going to experience the same problem and you could help them out. I built my whole audience because when I started at Marketo, I didn't know what the hell marketing automation was. And by the time I left, I was delivering keynotes for John Miller on the topic. But every time I had a question, I would reach out and interview somebody, an expert, and I would be selfishly asking them for me so I could figure out what the hell I was doing. But I documented everything, and it built up this authority. And I became this sort of authority around B2B marketing, marketing automation, social media marketing, all these things I became known for. And for some reason, I tweeted once about Jar Jar Binks and how much I hated that character in Star Wars. And if you look me up on Clout, for some reason it says social media marketing, marketing automation, Jar Jar Binks. The hell did 44,000 retweets on that. Oh man, big mistake. So I like to say the blog is the social media rug that ties the room together, or somebody tweeted me the other day, the big LeBlogski. I almost couldn't say that. Anyway, so when you create your blog, this is where it gets fun, right? So you can't deliver the same type of content every single day. So we came up with this concept. Well, I borrowed this concept, right? I borrowed this concept. I put my own spin on it called the blogging food groups. Now, you don't have to follow this verbatim, but we follow this at LinkedIn all around the world. There are 5 types of blogs, 5 days of the week. Again, you don't have to post these every single day, but we start off on Monday in no particular order. We start off on Monday with what we call Raise Your Brand. Raise Your Brand content is stuff that's easy to dish out. 5 tips for this, 5 tips for that, how to do this, very quick, simple articles, right? We get into Tuesday, which is supposed to be the spinach content. I should probably fix that. That's a little bit more thought leadership angle, maybe some research. We call it spinach because it's difficult to chew, but it's good for you, right? That goes into Wednesday. We call this the roast post. Now, this is a big, massive 2,000-word blog post, the definitive take on a topic, on a long-tail keyword that you want to own very quickly. We call it a roast because it's something you chew on a little bit longer, right? So you bookmark it, you save it for later, and you let this one resonate with you. Then Thursday, we get into what we call the Tabasco post. This is the one I love because it's something, you light a little fire. So you take a very controversial topic and you put your own spin on it. Or you call somebody out for something you don't think is right. That's called Tabasco. That leads up to Friday, which is what we call the chocolate cake post. This is something fun, just a fun little infographic, a fun little review or post or whatever. But you want to send your audience into the weekend with a smile on their face so that they will come back and go through this content journey with you again the following week. This works beautifully. I promise you, I built the entire blog at Marketo and LinkedIn around these theories, right? So I put this in. I wanted to give you an example. So I applied this to my favorite topic of choice, heavy metal, right? And so I'm going to share with you an example of each of these based on heavy metal. This is Monday Post, Raisin Bran, how to appreciate heavy metal. Very simple, very easy, nice visual, simple to do, not too much time to consume. Then we get into Tuesday. We call this Spinach Post. This was in the Atlantic. It's called How Heavy Metal is Keeping Us Sane, and it's an article about this guy who lives vicariously through Ozzy Osbourne and Black Sabbath so that he doesn't smack the person in front of him for putting 40 pounds of sugar into his coffee and he can't get out the door. Right? It's a really interesting thing. He lives his frustrations through heavy metal, and it keeps him sane. So then we get into Wednesday. This is the history of the new wave of British heavy metal. It is 3,000 words. It owns this conversation. It's a roast post. It's beautiful. It's elegant. It ranks #1 in the search engines. It does its job very specifically, right? Then we get into Thursday. The Tabasco. 5 70s metal bands who are better than Black Sabbath. That is impossible because Black Sabbath invented heavy metal. I commented on this post 27 times. Then we get into chocolate cake. So I wrote this post. This is the most successful post on my personal blog outside of 5 amazing pictures of Kiss without makeup in the 70s. Very specific. I rank in position 0 for that. So this is fun chocolate cake content. It took me 10 minutes to write this post. But the idea was I was being retargeted for the Led Zeppelin 4, arguably the greatest rock album of all time, for the 40th anniversary deluxe edition on Amazon. So when I got to Amazon, I noticed there are, of course, 10,000 5-star reviews because this is a groundbreaking record. But there was like 400 1-star reviews. And I thought, who in the hell would give Led Zeppelin 4 1 star? And so I pulled them all together, and I just put it out there. But I will share one of these reviews with you. This is a real review from Amazon. This gentleman took the time to write this about Led Zeppelin 4, and it simply says, yes, I know some people gave this album 5 stars, but I've seen some 5-star reviews for the movie Howard the Duck here. That's real. It's funny. Except some people aren't laughing. That's all right. I don't want to call anybody out. So anyway, what I love about this approach is eventually there's a guy named Hugh MacLeod who wrote this book called Ignore Everybody. Hugh MacLeod is one of my favorite writers of all time. But how he writes his book is he takes his blog posts, and each blog post is a chapter. So if you keep this up, for example, you could roll those 5 blog posts up into your book, into your thought leadership angle book. This one could be called Heavy Metal Music in Britain. But writing one chapter at a time and then pulling these all together and structuring it into a piece of content. And you know what works because you can look at the traffic and you can look at the time on site to see what is your best content. Then you roll that up, and that is your book. That is your new business card. That is how I get gigs mostly around the world, is from the book I wrote, which was built of 2 years of marketing blog posts. We sold 15,000 copies of this around the world, and I didn't even go to a publisher. I formed my own publishing company called Heavy Metal Thunder. We have t-shirts and everything. We're totally legit. But the idea was you don't even need the publishers anymore. I did this all because of my network, the network I built, the audience I built, and the content was proven to work. And I get 70% royalties on that. So if you get a deal with an author, with Wiley or somebody, nothing against them, it works. If you need that PR push, I don't have that. You don't make a lot of money from it. I didn't do this to make money, but it's working out well for my daughter's college fund. So, I have a bonus piece of chocolate cake for you. So I remember I was coming back from Las Vegas, where I was at the Guns N' Roses residency for 7 days. They played till 4 in the morning. It was the most epic thing ever. If I had to rank events in my life, it would be birth of my daughter, wedding day, Guns N' Roses in Las Vegas. So I came back from the plane. I wrote this on the plane, walked into John Miller's office, and I said, John, I have this great idea for a blog post called 5 Content Marketing Lessons from Guns N' Roses. And he said, I don't hate it, which means full steam ahead from John Miller. If you know John, please don't tell me I said that. Anyway, but what would happen next would baffle me completely. Put on your marketing seatbelts, folks, but look at this. Guns N' Roses, I'm not making this up. This is not Photoshopped. Guns N' Roses shared my Marketo blog post. Sure as hell never saw this coming with their audience. Now, you might be thinking, what in the hell does Guns N' Roses fans care about marketing automation platform? And I'll tell you, nothing. It did nothing for us, but it did put a smile on our customers' faces. It added some personality. It humanized the brand. It gave them a laugh. and they went into the weekend, and they came back, and they went on this journey with us again. So that's how I infuse my passion of heavy metal into everything I do. So this is Mr. David Bowie back in 1979. A music journalist walked up to him here in London and said, "Mr. Bowie, are you original?" And he said, "Absolutely not." But he said, "The only art I'll ever study is stuff that I can steal from." There are no original ideas anymore, right? Just like every riff in rock and roll has been written. So the idea, again, is how do you take this, inject your personality, pivot it, put your own spin on it, and push these ideas forward? That is what all this is about. That's how you build an audience, right? Oh, here it comes. This is my final piece. That is Mr. Axl Rose. I took this picture in Las Vegas. But everyone knows Guns N' Roses, right? We're big fans. So Axl Rose, 1984, 85, Axl Rose in Cleveland, Ohio, gets onto a bus, goes all the way across the country by himself to Los Angeles, Sunset Strip. Gets off the bus. His first experience is a homeless man that walks up to him and says, "Do you know where you are? You're in the jungle, baby, and you're going to die." And that's where the song was born. And Appetite for Destruction, to this day, is the biggest selling debut record in the history of music. And Axl Rose and company broke out of the hair metal mess of Poison and Hairspray and Aquanet and zebra striped spandex. I was part of this generation. I still have those zebra striped spandex. They're not very flattering on me any longer. Not that they ever were. But people ask me all the time, what's the next big trend in content marketing? Let's say it's influencer marketing. I will say influencer marketing is very difficult, very challenging, and it can be very costly. I would say the biggest trend is employee advocacy. So how do you, when you create this content, are your employees sharing it, right? How do you get them engaged about sharing this? And I will share some stats with you. We have a platform at LinkedIn called Elevate, which is what we use to to sort the articles by channel and then share them and measure the impact. Now, we found out through our own research that our employees' combined connections on social networks are on average 10 times larger than the company's followers. Think about that, right? Take a step further. Shared content is more credible content. Only 3% of employees share content, yet they generate 30% of all content engagement for a typical business. 3%. Think about if you double that. Think about if you triple that, right? And employees are proven to get 2 times higher click-through rates from their shares compared to companies sharing the same content. What does that say? It says that we trust people over brands. It's just a fact, right? Now, the biggest hurdle for employees to share content is they always say, "What's in it for me? What's in it for me?" I will tell you, this is the journey of every 6 pieces of content shared on LinkedIn influences. 6 job views, HR's happy, right? Talent brand, 3 company page views, marketing's happy. 1 company page follower, again, marketing's happy. 6 profile views, this is great for your sales team. This is great for your thought leadership. This is great for building authority around your audience, around a topic that you want to own. And finally, 2 new connections established. Building that audience, building that network. Every 6 pieces of content on LinkedIn influences all of this. So when someone asks, "What's in it for me?" you can share that it's in their best interest to do this. And finally, again, I found that a single employee sharing 3 pieces of content a day, 5 days a week, can add up to 23 million in additional reach in a year. And this can add up to 60,000 additional events of people engaging with your content. How do I know that? Because that was me. I measured all of my social shares 3 times a week for 1 year. And that's the number. Now take that 63,000 pieces of engagement. This is organic, by the way. There is no paid behind this. Do not let anyone tell you that organic is dead. Claiming that any marketing discipline or tactic is dead in 2018 is so passé. But I will tell you that even if you assign a very modest $3 per engagement to that, that is a significant boost in paid or in media exposure, and everyone should be thrilled about that. And you can measure this back. You can track this back to your market automation platform and actually track pipeline and sales. How crazy is that? And it's organic and it's free, except for the platform. So I will leave you with a couple more thoughts and wrap this up. Jello Biafra is the lead singer of, the Dead Kennedys. He famously said, when this whole disco era and disco was taking over the world and punk rock couldn't get in any publications, he said, "Don't hate the media, become the media." and they became so outlandish with their ways that they forced the media to pay attention to them. But again, they own this conversation, and they pushed it forward. So Dead Kennedys, I love them. I just saw them in London a little while ago, and they were fantastic. These are my recommended books. Sorry for the curse words, but that is the book that I recommend the highest, called How to Be Effing Awesome. This guy, Dan Meredith. Anybody know this guy? I recommend get the audio version of this because Dan reads it himself, and it is inspiring. It is a fantastic story, and it gets you pumped up, and it makes you want to be awesome because we are all awesome. We have something to share. But we need to get it out of our head and get it out there in the world and share it with our audience, right? So this is Content Rules. This is Hugh McLeod's Ignore Everybody. This book will change the way you think about creativity, will change the way you think about business, life, everything. It is another one of my favorite books. And then Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. These are the resources I recommend. Answer the Public. If you need some ideas, you can type in your keywords: procurement, sales pipeline, or purchasing, supply chain, etc. And what this will do is it will pop up a beautiful pinwheel of different topic suggestions and variations on that, right? And what it's doing is it's basically crawling Google Auto Suggest, and it's pulling this all into an actionable way that you can get ideas for blog posts, for video posts, for copywriting when you share your content, etc. Of course, Grammarly. I'm not the best writer in the world, but this thing saves my butt all the time. It tells you exactly where the grammatical errors are, fixes them for you, and then reminds you that you're not as smart as you think you are. And then BuzzSumo. Again, if you want to see the biggest, most popular shared content around a specific topic, you type it in there. If you want to see the influencers, you can type in that topic. It will bring that up for you as well. There's a free version as well as a paid, but it's a brilliant service. Lots of cool stuff with BuzzSumo, and then, of course, LinkedIn, which I use daily. So, this happened just a couple of months ago. I was coming back from a keynote at Chelsea Stadium. Anybody know who this gentleman is? That is Mick Jones. And I literally just finished talking about The Clash. And I was on my phone. Somebody tweeted a picture of me talking about Mick Jones. And I see him in front of me on the tube. And I turn around. And I said, "You're Mick Jones." And he said, "Yeah, mate." And then he looked at my phone. And he goes, "There's my face, mate." And I could not believe this happened. And no one else recognized him. And he said, and I've never taken a selfie my entire life. And he said, "Do you want a selfie?" And I said, "Absolutely." And so I took this picture, literally. And he's just the coolest, nicest guy. But here's I don't know how old he is, 60, 70 years old, carrying a bag of records. I'm like, "That's Mick Jones. I can't believe this. I was just talking about you." This is my book, Welcome to the Funnel. Everything I know about social media and content rolled into one. We're revising this for 2018 as well. This came out a few years ago. This is my concert photography book, which I just fulfilled my Kickstarter campaign. I shoot concert photography in my spare time. So over 4 years, I never picked up a camera, fell into this. From my first shot to my last shot, I document the experience of photographing 1,001 bands all around the world. It took 1.2 million photos, and I tell you how to do it here in all the settings, everything that nobody wants to tell you. Disrupting the music concert photography business. And then this is my personal branding book, coming out in August after my memoirs, which will be launched on my birthday, July 15th. And that's it. Thank you. I found if you embed music into your final slide, you have walk-off music, and no one can figure out where the hell it's coming from, so they don't turn it off. Thank you, everyone. And feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. If you see the little follow button, just hit the drop down for some reason and then connect there. I'd love to connect and have me answer any questions if you have them. So thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you again.